Okay, we're going to use a problem as an example of absorption variable costing. I'll do one video on absorption and one on variable, but we're going to answer the same problem with the same questions. So here's the problem. We have units in beginning inventory is 0. We produced 10,000 units. We sold 8,000 units. And then here's the information about my variable cost per unit. I've got $50 in direct labor, $100 in direct labor per unit. These are all per unit, and $50 for the variable overhead per unit. And then my fixed cost, I've got a fixed cost per unit produced of 25 and a fixed selling administration of $100,000. So be careful, because you'll see some of these are units, some of these are per unit, some of these are dollars, some of these are actual physical inventory. So just make sure you keep those all straight when you're going through this. So the first question it asks under absorption costing is how many units are in ending inventory? Well, the equation, remember, is beginning inventory plus whatever I produced minus whatever I sold should equal my ending inventory. Okay, and in this case I have 0, so I'll just say I have 0 beginning inventory plus how many I produced, which is 10,000, minus how many were sold, which is 8,000, gives me 2,000 units in ending inventory. That's the answer to number 1. It says using absorption costing, calculate the per unit product cost. Absorption cost, remember, I'll go back to my other slide here. Remember, absorption costing is direct materials, direct labor, and fixed overhead, variable overhead and fixed overhead. So that means my cost per unit is going to be the total of my direct materials, my direct labor, my variable overhead, and my fixed overhead, because this is absorption where I do use fixed overhead. So my total cost per unit is going to be $225. So then my third question is, what's the value of ending inventory? Well, the value of ending inventory, we just figured out that we had 2,000. We figured out that the cost is $225 each. So I can just take 2,000 times 225 to get the value of my ending inventory. In this case, it would be $450,000 for the value of my ending inventories. There's the answer to number 3. Second part of this question, it asks us to calculate the cost of goods sold under absorption costing and prepare an income statement under absorption costing. So cost of goods sold, effectively, since we've already found the cost per unit of 225, since we already know that each unit costs us 225, which we found in the prior problem, this is my, 225 is my per unit cost. I can simply figure out how many I sold and multiply by that to figure out what my cost of goods sold is. And I know how many I sold because it's a given amount. I sold 8,000 units. So my cost of goods sold would be 225 cost per unit times 8,000. So my cost of goods sold is going to be $1.8 million. It's going to be my cost of goods sold. So an income statement, remember, an income statement is my revenues minus my expenses, but we always take our cost of goods sold out first. So we start with sales minus my cost of goods sold, which I just found. So my sales, I sold 8,000 units. 8,000 units, and that's a given number. And it says that I sold those for $300 each. So I'm gonna multiply that by 300. So my sales is 2.4 million. My cost of goods sold I just found. And sales minus my cost of goods sold is called my gross margin. I'm going to subtract those two numbers on my gross margin. Then I need to take out my, I need less my selling and administrative expenses, which in this case is $100,000, I believe. Yeah, it's $100,000. So I can find my operating income. It's going to be the 600,000 minus the $100,000 for 500,000. So what you're going to see when we do the variable one is that this is going to differ, especially the income statement is going to differ because of the fact that my unit cost is going to change, because I'm not going to include this fixed overhead cost in that. Instead, it's going to go as a separate line item. But we'll do that in the next video. So that's the absorption costing for this example problem.